Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today I'm doing the second part to a little thing that I'm doing here, and I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite Star Wars books that I read this year. Just for fun, for the end of the year, I decided to do some videos based on my favorite and least favorite Star Wars books I've read this year. I've already done my top 5 least favorite. This is going to be my top 10 favorite, and if you're wondering why I'm doing 10 instead of 5, or in the case of my least favorites, 5 instead of 10. There's just a lot that I really enjoyed that I wanted to talk about, so I had to make it 10 for this list. And there was not much that I didn't really enjoy that much, so I had to make it 5 for the other list. But yeah, all of these books I think are really great. The very first book I'm going to talk about is a canon book from the High Republic. That is Into the Dark. This is the very first young adult novel done for the High Republic. It was written by Claudia Gray, who many of you who have read a lot of the canon books probably know is one of the better Star Wars authors out there. She's definitely one of my favorite ones. And this is a really good book. It has some really great characters in it. I really enjoy Rhys Silas and Master Comac and different ones. I don't know if I'm saying that name properly, but introduces a lot of great characters who have become some of my favorites in the High Republic, and it also establishes the Drengir, however you say that, as villains, and I think does so quite well. And it also takes place kind of alongside Light of the Jedi, which is not on this list. It barely didn't make the cut, but I really enjoy how this kind of ties into that and shows a different perspective on what's going on at the same time. And overall, it's just a really great book. Next one is probably one that is going to upset some people who are big Legends fans that it is this low, but it is the Thrawn Trilogy, and I only have Heir to the Empire here because it's the most recognizable one. But yeah, the Thrawn Trilogy, which is great for sure, but I just enjoyed all these other ones more. But yeah, the Thrawn Trilogy is really fantastic. It is obviously very important simply for Star Wars history, because if we didn't have this trilogy and if it wasn't as successful as it was, we probably wouldn't have had the expanded universe as we know it now. And Star Wars, in terms of the non-film material at least, I think would be in a very different place than it currently is. So just for that alone, this trilogy is really important, but it's also a great story. It's a great follow-up to the original trilogy. It follows all of those beloved characters and gives them the new enemy in Thrawn, who is a great villain, and it introduces some fun new concepts that are a little bit weird, things with cloning and stuff that are kind of weird, but I think they work and they're kind of fun. So overall, it's a great trilogy. It's just not one of my absolute favorites, but I would definitely recommend reading it if you have not before. Next one up is one that pains me to put this low, but it is 000, the second book in the Republic Commando trilogy, or not trilogy, series. I've only read the first 3 books so far. And you may be wondering, why am I only including this one out of the series rather than the whole first 3 that I've read so far? And the reason for that is I just think this one is easily the best one. Hard Contact I really enjoyed as well, and True Colors I thought was really good too. But this one for me stands head and shoulders above the other 3, or the other 2 rather. But this is a really great book. It follows Omega Squad, who is the main clone commando squad in the first book, and also includes Delta Squad from the Republic Commando game, so that was very exciting for me because I'm a big fan of Republic Commando. And it continues the story in a really great way. It introduces some great new characters like Cal Scarata, who is now one of my favorite Legends characters. I think he's awesome. And I'm very excited to hopefully learn more about him in the other Republic Commando books that I have not read so far. But yeah, this is a really great one, very underrated in my opinion. Yeah, definitely check it out. Next one up is one that again may be a little bit controversial because it's placed a little bit lower, but it is Vector Prime, but I'm putting this in place of the first 3 books of the New Jedi Order, those being Vector Prime and the Dark Tide duology, which again at this point is all I've read of New Jedi Order. I'm really enjoying it a lot so far. I just haven't gotten around to reading the rest, and it is like a 19-book series, so it's a little bit long. It'll take me a while to get through, but yeah, the New Jedi Order series so far is really fantastic. I'm enjoying it a lot. It includes the invasion of the galaxy by the Yuuzhan Vong, who are really interesting villains, I think. This series is a little bit controversial. I've seen a lot of people say it's one of the best, and a lot of people say it's one of the worst. So do keep that in mind, but I really enjoy it so far, so it gets a little spot on this list. Next one up is another one that pains me to put this low. I believe it would be number 6 on the list, and that is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray once again. And this is a really great book. I almost considered putting this higher, but it just, that really speaks to the quality of the other 5 books that I have not gotten to yet, because this is absolutely fantastic. It's a very unique sort of book as well. It follows 2 characters who were childhood friends turned lovers who end up on opposite sides of the galactic civil war. One is on the rebel side, one is on the Empire side. And it's just really interesting. It's a really great story. It's one that I didn't expect to love as much as I did, because I heard it was kind of like more of a love story sort of thing, about more small scale, and for me, Star Wars, for the most part, is most interesting when it's larger scale. And that's why I love stuff like the High Republic and the Old Republic, stuff that's really like big, large scale conflicts and stories and stuff. So I wasn't sure how much I'd enjoy this considering how small scale it is, but I absolutely loved it. So if you have not read this yet, definitely do so. Next up, yet another one that pains me to put this low, even though it's at number 5, is Kenobi by John Jackson Miller. And again, this is one I was a little unsure if I would really love, because it is such a small scale story. But, and initially I was a little iffy on it. It took me some time to really get into, but it is a fantastic read. It is about Obi-Wan Kenobi as he exiles himself on Tatooine very, very soon after Revenge of the Sith. And it's really interesting because you get to see what his life is like on Tatooine, at least towards the start, as well as how what happened in Revenge of the Sith is affecting him. You know, the whole thing with Anakin and the rise of the Empire, the fall of the Republic, the fall of the Jedi, all that stuff. You really get to see how that is affecting him, and that is fantastic. And I really, really hope that the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi show takes some notes from this book, because I think that would be awesome. Next one up, I would say, is arguably the most underrated book on my list, one that I enjoyed quite a lot, and that is Maul Lockdown. This is one of the more recent ones that I've read as well. I read this right before the Han Solo Adventures and Lando Calrissian Adventures trilogies that were actually on my least favorites list. But I really enjoyed this one a lot. I really liked how it showed Maul's character, and it was just an interesting story. I got through this book quite quickly because it was just such a page turner for me. And it's it's an incredibly violent book, so keep that in mind if you decide to read it. This is easily one of, if not the darkest and most violent Star Wars book that I have read so far, and probably in general when it comes to Star Wars stories, not even talking just about the books. It's kind of intense at times, but it's really good. Great story. I love Maul's character in it. And yeah. Next up, breaking into the top 3 now. First one up I have is Darth Plagueis. For me, this is one of a few Star Wars books that I would say, whether you're a fan of Legends or canon or whatever it may be, I would consider this absolutely essential to read, even if you're not really into Legends. This book, to me, actually enhances The Phantom Menace, which I think is awesome. You know, it gives so much background to it, and even the end of the book actually overlaps with The Phantom Menace, so you can sort of see what's going on behind the scenes during that movie. And it's about, obviously, Darth Plagueis, and he takes on Palpatine as his apprentice, and it really does a great job of showing Palpatine's earlier years as a Sith and his training, and Plagueis is a really interesting character. And I'm a big fan of Sith-focused stories as well. So seeing what the Sith were up to during the prequel trilogy era is really cool to me. And yeah, definitely an essential one to read, I would say, if you're interested at all in the literary works of Star Wars. Next one, number 2, is one that really blew me away when I first read it. And it was a new release from this year. Once again, The High Republic, The Rising Storm by Cavan Scott. This is an absolutely fantastic book. I absolutely loved it. It's like the first half is very much like a slow burn, like it just kind of everything is getting set up. The whole premise of the book is that the Republic Fair is happening, where a whole bunch of people from across the galaxy are coming to, and the Nile, the main villains of the High Republic, at least at this point, because I believe it's been teased that there may be some more in the future, but at least at this point, the Nile are the main villains, and they are planning an attack on the fair, which happens about halfway through the book. So the first half is all set up for that, and just building tension, and everybody being like, oh, this is great, you know, we're having such a great time, and then everything goes wrong. And Cavan Scott, I think, is a fantastic writer. This is the only book of his I've read, and already he's one of my favorite Star Wars authors, because his usage of tension and everything is just so wonderfully done. And much like Maul Lockdown, this was another page turner for me where I just could not stop reading it. Just the intensity and the excitement and the tragedy of everything that happens in this book is just so well done, and I could gush about it for a very long time, but I'm not going to because I don't have much time left to record this video. But definitely one I would recommend reading. This is my favorite High Republic story thus far, and yeah, check it out if you haven't. It's fantastic. So of course that only leaves us with my number one pick, which is another trilogy, and those of you who follow me on Twitter probably know what this is right from the get-go. The Darth Bane trilogy. I absolutely loved this trilogy. It was, I believe, the first Legends books that I read this year as well, so I would like to reread it again and see how it holds up now that I've read so much more since then. But I believe I read Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark, which are the two canon books, the two High Republic books, and then I believe I read this, or something like that. So this was one of the first things I read this year, and it has remained at the top of my list ever since. Like I said when I was talking about Plagueis, I love dark side focused stories, especially when they're more Old Republic era, and this is towards the end of the Old Republic era. It takes place about 1,000 years before the movies, so it is towards the end of that era, but it is really interesting to me seeing the downfall of the Sith and how it came to be that the rule of two was a thing, because that's something that I had kind of always wondered was, well, if the Sith were such a huge force prior to the rule of two, how did Darth Bane manage to make the rule of two a thing if there were that many Sith? And this book explains that, and the rest of the trilogy goes into Darth Bane, what he's up to, him taking on an apprentice named Darth Zana, who's also a really great character, and Darth Bane, I think, is one of the most interesting Sith to have ever been written about. And yeah, this is a fantastic trilogy. I would say Path of Destruction, this one is probably my favorite, simply because it does a lot of referencing Knights of the Old Republic, which I love, and it goes very deep into training at the Sith Academy and Sith philosophy and kind of their worldview and all that stuff, which I find super interesting. So this is probably my favorite of the trilogy, but all three are absolutely fantastic. So if you're interested at all in the Old Republic era, in the Sith, in anything like that, definitely read this. And this is another one alongside Darth Plagueis, as well as the Thrawn Trilogy, that I would consider essential for any Star Wars fan to read. So yeah, definitely check it out if you have not before. So that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and that is pretty much it for this video. So I'll see you guys next time.